All episodes of the Real Women in Business podcast reflect the opinions and views of the guest and Cass McCrory and do not reflect official policy or position of employers or clients. Thank you.
You're listening to the Real Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Cass McCrory, and in this podcast, we highlight women in all kinds of businesses. For yourself, someone else, full-time, part-time, overtime hustle, together we will learn from and with one another. And if we get it right, it'll lift us all. Let's get into it.
Friends, today we're talking to Jenn Folsom. She is the Chief of Corporate Development at Summit Consulting, but she's so much more than just that title. She is the author of an upcoming book called Ringmaster. And in this conversation, we talk about the marathon of motherhood, prioritization of work. She drops so many bombs of just amazing truth on us. And I'm going to give you a couple of teasers because you're going to want to listen to the end for some of these. Whatever you're doing, make sure you find some element of passion in it, because if you do, you can propel yourself forward. That was just like, yes, when you don't have the passion, you can't move forward. And then she reminds us that we simply do not have time for the BS. You are going to love this episode. I was introduced to Jenn just earlier this week when I saw her Know Your Value article and video online. And it really spoke to me because, Jenn, you're in the midst of a 4-month sabbatical. I'd love to start there and tell our listeners a little bit about you and kind of what this last 4 months has held for you. Well, 3 months. You've got one more month to go.
Yeah, it's wrapping up. It is 4 months, right? And I'm going back to work on Monday. So, this is an interesting thing. So I work for a mid-sized company, and we're always trying to find ways to keep our top talent. So we rolled out the sabbatical program, where if you have been at the firm for 5 years and can find a mutually agreeable plan with your partner, with the partners or your boss, you can do this unpaid sabbatical, but you keep your job and you keep your benefits. And I had been working on this passion project, a book, for years at this point, but between working, full-time plus and raising my 3 boys, I have 17-year-old twins and a 12-year-old. I just didn't have the time or the creative energy to focus on this book at all. So I really wanted to sort of hit pause on work, focus exclusively on writing this book, reconnect on my professional network, which is something I think just falls off for most working moms. Like, you just absolutely cannot find time when you're, driving the carpool at 6 p.m. to get to networking events. And really to spend a little more time with the boys and just kind of think about who I am, how do I manage the stress going forward, what are the things I want, where do I want to be this year, where do I want to be in 5 years. And I think when you're in that sort of cortisol-driven stress fight or flight reaction all the time, you don't have a hot minute to think about those things. So this was really a gift of time.
How far in advance did you plan this?
I planned this about 8 months before I took leave. So we really worked on a time that would work for both the company and for me. I had to frame this negotiation from their perspective. What is the thing that they wanted? They wanted to keep me, but we also had a really high risk profile and high profile project that I was leading that needed a home and needed to have good sea legs before I stepped away. So I wanted to make sure that the projects were up and running, my job duties were covered by other people, and we had a lot of time to plan for it.
What was giving you pause in that moment before you ask? What were the fears that you felt going into asking for this sabbatical?
Like, holy crap, I might get fired while I'm out, right? Like, even though this is a sabbatical, this is me showing up looking like a, less than strong leader. I don't want to say weak. This is me stepping off the accelerator at the meatiest part of my career growth, sort of like right before you make partner, I'm going to take a step off for 4 months. But I also knew I would not have the staying power to keep going, right? I could see that there was this cliff right ahead of me on burnout and exhaustion. And I needed to sort of take some positive steps that were right for me in order to stay on track. And, I think so many women just find that there's no way to go forward. So they just bail, right? They say, that's it. I'm giving up, throwing the towel in. And I want to show that you can successfully do this. You can take a pause. You can take a lateral move. You can take some time off and stay on track, because I just don't think we get anywhere we want to be in terms of pay equity or gender equality in the boardroom or the C-suite unless we have women who stay in the game. So with this book and with this sabbatical, I'm hoping to show that there is, a way to stay in the game, because this is what I've learned. A lot of the books on the shelf are really about getting through that first sort of year or two of motherhood, right? Like, how do you pump at work and how do you negotiate a flexible schedule when you have an infant? But really, the way the economy has progressed, we're going to be working for a long time. Our most basic needs like healthcare and housing continue to skyrocket. Like, we're not going to retire magically at 60. That's not going to happen. And as it turns out, we're going to be parenting for a long, long time, right? So you don't solve this problem in a year. These are very dynamic variables in terms of what your work is like and what your kids need. I think one of the biggest surprises to me is how much hands-on parenting my teenagers need. So where I'm not changing diapers, I need to just be near. I need to be around. I need to be accessible. My eyes need to be on the situation. And that was really key this summer. So I think rather than coming up with one solution for how you can make work and life work, it's more about the framework. How do you empower women to make decisions that are right for them? Because it's going to change and be very dynamic.
I love so much of what you just said, and I want to unpack it in so much detail now. We didn't have a ton of time to connect before, but I have little people still. So I have 11, 4, 2, and 1.
Oh,
and so
goodness, that's busy.
It's a lot of people. But I do see with the 11-year-old that proximity is key. She needs to know that we share enough space, enough of the time. So it's just watchful, and it's being in their influence and being in their sphere. And there are so many books, and I'm grateful for those resources, right? And the women that put those out about, how to survive the first 3 years and how to get through.
Rough. Right.
Oh yeah. Listen, I'm in the thick of it still with the younger people here.
Oh, my word.
But there's more to it than just that, because it's not like our problems are solved when we get them all into school. Like,
you got a different set of problems. You got school bus hours, and then you have summers. What do you do when they're out of daycare and they're just, really, what do you do with a 14-year-old in the summer, right? Too young to work, too old for camps. Yeah. And you want them just, in best case scenario, they're playing Fortnite, all day and, not showering or brushing their teeth. But the worst case scenario is what keeps me up at night, right? And that's why I really planned this sabbatical to be around this year, the year before my youngest goes to middle school, the year before my oldest go into senior year. I needed to just be in their orbit, to be that silent, boring partner. Like, if you're a mom and you're in the room with a bunch of teenagers, just be quiet. They will talk and you will learn things. Some things you don't want to know, but you just need to be around.
Yeah. There's so much value in that. And I love that you're creating voice for it. And I want to know more about this book that you alluded to, because I know it's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, we hope to have it to market sort of end of October. And, the idea here is, over 17 years of working motherhood, I've learned a lot. And it's not the Insta perfect life that we all see. There are a lot of warts. It's a lot of ugliness. But it's also a lot of beauty. There's a lot of power in that. And I think that what I hope to create here is a framework for women. And, and we'll talk about why I focus on women here, but a framework for women to make decisions about what they want. So stop chasing this fictitious balance. It doesn't exist, right? If you are working and you have children, which the majority of mothers are, it's a circus. It's just a circus, right? But the idea is that you are in control of the circus. You are the ringmaster. You decide what goes in each of your rings, your work ring, your life ring, and your you ring. You decide when and where the spotlight shines. And so, on the main, there may be a week or two where you're like all in at work because you got to be. You're on deadline. There may be a week or two where your 11-year-old is super emotional and just needs extra support, right? So you're leaving the office at 4 p.m. And that's cool too. If you look at the long game here, this marathon that is working motherhood, it all comes out in the wash if you are in control.
I'd love to know what motivated you to write the book.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. For a long time, I ran a company called Momentum Resources, which was a staffing firm that was based on part-time and flexible work. So I saw a lot of case studies, what worked and what didn't. And I wrote the blog, and in my, very naive mind, I thought, gosh, I can just package all these blogs into one book, and there you go. But streaming together a narrative, has been a bigger effort, right? So like, I'm not a professional author. Now I need to learn how this whole thing works. But also, I think in the 17 years that I've been a working mother, the narrative has changed a little bit. The stories are a little bit different. We're seeing a lot more involvement among millennial dads than about Gen Xers. The Me Too movement has pushed things like pay equity and new parent leave to the forefront. So the conversations are a little bit different and nuanced. So I've learned a lot of hard-won lessons that I think are helpful to a wider audience. But I need to be contemporary for where we are right now. And frankly, I think because I had kids a little bit earlier than many of my peers, they were always coming to me for help with this. And of course, my friends and family, I'm going to sit down over wine or coffee and figure it all out. But then it came to, I need my cousin's also having twins, and she's in business school too. What can we do for her? Can you sit down and can you talk with her? And I found that my time, this most precious resource I have, was spread so thin with so many people that needed to have these conversations. So, the consultant in me says, how do I take these solutions to scale? And I'm hoping that having podcast conversations, which I'm so thankful for, like this, and the book are the way to get some of those solutions out to the masses.
When you think about, your cousin and being in a leadership role just in your family, like you're in a position to provide great advice. What did you share? What was a couple of those insights?
I think a couple of the insights are sort of kind of coming out on the other side, right? So my older two are about to be at least legally adults, so I'm not sure where their emotions are wise. There are things that just don't matter, right? So you're in the throes of preschool. You're getting invitations, I'm sure, every weekend for a preschool birthday party. The people that they're in daycare and preschool with are not their lifelong friends. They don't even recognize them in a few years. So it's okay to gracefully decline. My caveat is this, and a friend pointed this out. She has a special needs daughter, and she said, but please don't regret to my daughter's party. She has special needs and she needs her friends. So this is not a blanket statement across the board, say no to every single preschool birthday party invitation. But if you say yes to all of them and you have 4 kids, you'll be at Chuck E. Cheese every weekend.
Yes.
That's not what you want to be doing with your limited family time. And also, it's okay to say no to not volunteer to be class mom if you're working. That's okay. There's other ways that you can provide support, right? I always say, like, be the PTA committee lead. You choose a committee area that's of, interest to you, that, you control the schedule on, you control the meetings, and things like travel soccer. Okay. Travel soccer seems to be some sort of leading economic indicator of how successful you're trying to be in life. And it's just not. If you look at the numbers, most of the kids who are playing travel soccer right now won't even make their varsity team in high school, much less play in college. And if they play in college, are they going to go be one of the pros that makes $25,000 a year? I'm saying just evaluate the bigger picture, right? It's okay to do rec league soccer. And I did play college soccer, and I still play in an old lady league now. And I'm all in on soccer. So I don't mean to pick on the sport, but my point is you need to be really intentional with how you spend your limited free time and resources. And likewise, kind of what I've learned on the work front, you don't need to go to every single happy hour and every single lunch. Pick and choose the ones that really matter. Your assistant, your boss, your work wife. Those people are the ones who matter. Don't worry about being popular at work. People are not giving you side eye because you leave at 4:30. That is your schedule. Walk out, head held high, and really think about what you're providing to the company and to your team. Don't apologize for those kinds of things.
The apologizing, I think, is such an interesting point, because a couple of weeks ago, it was pointed out to me that I was apologizing about my vacation time. I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be out for this. And it's like, wait a minute, I had announced this months ago.
No.
I've had this vacation planned. By apologizing for it, I really am stepping into a position of feeling bad personally and inviting people to be like, yeah, she feels bad about this.
Right.
I think that's
it's okay to say, gosh, it's unfortunate that I can't make this conference that I really wanted to go to, but the timing just didn't work. It's timing, right? And you of course don't want to put more work on your coworkers when you're out of the office for vacation, right? You feel badly about that. That's okay too, but you're doing the same for them, right? It's reciprocal. And I think that just remember that you don't need to apologize for taking the time that you are owed.
yes. That is really juicy. I love that you mentioned this travel soccer league and the consuming nature of all of these things. And yeah, we do need to have a little bit of a reality check because we're not getting some award at the end of motherhood saying, I ran myself ragged every Saturday getting between 3 different sports events and a birthday party, and I made dinner from scratch. Like there's no sticker chart.
No, there is no sticker chart. I mean, if you go back to what is your goal, right? So I keep thinking about this. My goal is about raising healthy, happy, successful future adults, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like in your day-to-day decision making? Making them do their own laundry at a very young age, that's part of it. You can't do that if they're shuttling between scouts and piano lessons and ballet on Saturday afternoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really just taking a step back and thinking about what are your goals here? With every sport that we've thought of, and I think my kids have tried all of them. I mean, fencing, soccer, swimming, crew. I mean, we've done one of everything, and we've coached a lot of them. So I really believe in youth sports, but I think youth sports have gone off the rails in terms of taking over our lives. And, if the goal is raising an active kid that becomes an active adult, it's not about making varsity, it's about learning the lessons on a team, then you're probably looking a lot more like exploring lots of different rec sports, which doesn't wreck your life,
yes.
Right? So if you go all in with your prodigy dancer or your, the next pro lacrosse player, you're really doing harm to your whole family and to your child, but also to your career. I mean, just think about this. So you've got an 11-year-old, right? So the 11-year-old, you had a long time gap between 11 and sort of the littles, right?
Yeah.
So with one kid, you can do 4 activities and both of you work 4 times.
Oh, absolutely.
But if each kid plays a musical instrument and a sport, you've got 8 activities. Like, how do you do that? Like, those activities happen between 4 and 8 p.m. every night. You are still working then.
Right.
Right. So just the math and logistics don't add up. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to make this work. Okay, so she doesn't get Suzuki violin lessons. She does violin at school in 6th grade. Cool.
Right.
Goal, right? This is good. Check the box.
Keeping our focus on our bigger goal is so critical.
Focus on the bigger goal, and that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing, right? So
Yes.
This is huge, right? So, and my sort of peer band of my business school classmates, for example, everyone's making partner right now. And taking these big C-level roles in big firms with global brands. And sometimes I sit back and think, well, where did I go wrong? What did I do differently? And, I think about advice that a good friend of mine said, that we're going to Nancy Pelosi the heck out of our 50s, right? So Nancy Pelosi didn't even run for office until kids were out of the house. If you look at your timeline and your bigger goals, my bigger goals right now, I need to be a lot more hands-on with my kids. I just do. Still working full-time, but that time to really ramp up and dive in headlong into a very, very meaty, juicy role that's going to take me to the next level, that can also wait.
Yes, because the aging of your kids is not. Like that's happening. That is a train and it is moving, and you can either get on it or you are on the sidelines for it.
100%.
I have this thing that I say to myself all of the time whenever I come up with a big idea that I wish I could do right there in that moment. I say, I get to live a very long life.
Yes.
And I just say, this is going to happen another time in that very long life. Like, I believe that I will be blessed with this. I don't know that I will be that lucky, but I believe that I will be. And it's just going to happen another time because
exactly.
We can't do it all. How do you frame the idea of balance today? I know you don't believe in the word balance or in the balance, but like, how do you think of it then if it's not balance?
I think of it as just fully integrated in what's making sure that all the different parts of your life are satisfied, right? And so I think this is a hard thing for real type A people like you, like me, right? Like we want to just kill it all the time. And there's a season for all of those things, right? And so if you go back to your advice, and I love that, and I will take that with me, I am going to live a long life. I have to really believe this. This is not the day for that. This is not the season for that. I cannot do all the things. Although, like, let's be real. Like, don't you feel like you do all the things before you go to work in the morning? Like,
Yes.
before you walk in, you're like, I have done all of the things. It's only 9 a.m. How did that happen?
Yeah.
So, I think we have to give ourselves a little credit for keeping small people alive, and then growing them into healthy, happy adults is a really big lift. And then, what we do at work, I think we undervalue ourselves all the time. And I talk a lot about this in the book, right? How you know your value and know you're delivering value is really important because you just don't have time for the BS. You don't have time to be on the sunshine committee to pick up cakes at Safeway for someone's birthday every month and then feel bad about not making your own cake. I mean, no, just no. Like if you want to gain some visibility and feel like you're part of the team, great, you should. But instead, why don't you run the annual philanthropy event and then write a blog post about it that the entire company will see your name attached to? You'll have some handshaking with the C-suite. It's once a year and then it's done. That's a much better way to sort of dive into work and add value. But also, knowing what relationships matter, right? So I think that when I first went back to work, I was so worried about being unliked at work and trying to make good relationships with everyone. And really, it's so basic. Your boss is the one that matters. It doesn't matter what your flexible life policies are and your telecommuting policies. Your boss controls when you leave the office every day, what your schedule looks like, how much stress you carry, whether or not any flexibility arrangements you've made impact your annual rise and your bonus. That is the person you must please. And there are like 10 steps to really focus on making sure your boss is real happy. If you're delivering value to your boss, you're good to go, man. It's going to be fine. You can get whatever flexibility you want.
It's so important. You're so right. Because I think so many times we get caught up in all of the people that we could please, all of the people that we touch in a day. And we lose sight of, am I serving the most important need?
Yes, right. And so you need to know, what is the business problem I'm trying to solve? How can I do it most efficiently? And as mothers, we are like the queens of efficiency. So do it efficiently and then let the rest go, right? You have to let it go. I mean, I can Frozen song this. I can yogi apiragrahas, the sutra for letting go, like whatever, framework you need. You just need to let it go. It's okay. And, I think that when I look back on the time I wasted, I'm really irritated with myself. Like, why did I care about what this person thought or that person thought? But I'm also a management consultant at the end of the day, right? So I'm a process improvement person. So when I'm looking at what relationships matter, it's like, what about Mary in accounting? And she approves my invoices that I jack up every time. I need her to like me and fix my problems because I'm going to get hung up on one key part of my business line. So finding where you have potential rubs, those key people, whether it might be the admin who controls the conference rooms. I mean, those people hold the keys to the kingdom. So bring her a muffin in the morning. Forget about the Safeway cake for someone's birthday, right? This is about just being really efficient with your relationships. And it sounds calculated, and I don't mean for it to be that way. You should be unfailingly polite with everyone. Bring joy. Come up with a good attitude every day. But it's just, you don't need to worry about the people that don't matter. Like you really, at the end of the day, need to be so focused and strategic on your relationships.
I want to get back to the sabbatical because it's nearing its end. What surprised you about the time off?
It went lightning fast. I never took maternity leaves with my kids. So I feel like this is my very delayed maternity leave. I had the twins when I was in business school as a full-time student, and I had my third when I was running a startup. So this was my first kind of pause away, and it went as fast as everyone says maternity leave does. But I was also really busy. Like I still got up at 5 a.m. and worked out with my friends and had a big structure to my day. I did become a lot more in tune with myself, my body, my wants, my needs, what my triggers were. And I'm really thinking hard about how I take that sort of stress management Zen that I've acquired back to work next week. So, a couple of things. My boss has asked for a few meetings this week for onboarding and get me back up to speed. And I set a real clear boundary and I said, I'm back Monday. Like, we'll do this Monday. I don't need to do this on my own dime. I switched up my commute. So rather than slogging through traffic, I piloted a new commute that I think will bring me a little more zen. It's like half bike, half water taxi, but I'm out in the river and the sun is rising. So again, 25 minutes of me time versus just trying to do calls in the car as I white knuckle through traffic. So I'm looking to see how boundaries and switching up some basics really will carry through into sort of the new Jenn.
I like that. I like how you're framing it as the new Jenn, because I think that we need to name ourselves in a moment, and we need something that really signifies this was then and now this is now.
Exactly.
Are you going to be in the same office?
I am going to be in the same office, but working with the partners to kind of switch up what my responsibilities look like for client engagement. When you work in client services, you're at their behest. I mean, this is your professional services and consulting. So, I still need to be front and center. My clients need to be happy. But I've been blessed with an organizational culture that really does focus on, is your client happy? Are you meeting your targets? Cool. Do it you. So we've worked out a little bit of a schedule change and some hours and going back to having one day a week from working from home, which I think, makes just a tremendous difference. If I can get 2 hours saved in a commute back to my week, I can do either one thing for me, which I try like to do, like a nice yoga class in the studio, not in my guest bedroom on a video, and run the family errands. And that way Saturday is a little more chill. Right? I'm not running around to the cleaners in the grocery store, and we can really focus on unwinding together as a family.
I love that. My husband and I, we worked together, and we decided when we made that shift that we were going to make changes in our lifestyle and everything so that we could work 4 days a week instead of 5, because having that third weekend day just created so much abundance for us.
Space.
It created so much space. And when we look at what we had to give up for that, so minimal in the scheme of life. And we just had to make enough space to say, hey, can I set that boundary? And am I willing? And he's actually very good at this. I'm very bad at it. Can I honor the boundary that I create?
Yeah. Well, we'll see if I can do that too. I'll report back.
Yeah, please do. Cause I think it's really difficult to say to somebody that's asking something of you, and you can help, to say, I can do this, but can this be done on Monday? Like, that is very challenging for me to say.
And what I have come back to, and I say this all the time in consulting, because in consulting and high profile projects, every deadline is a very big deal. But we're not invading a small country or curing cancer, right? So kind of projects I do, like they can wait a day. It's okay. It may be a better, calmer product. If I can bring that zen to my team, I'll have higher retention of the right talent, right? And in consulting, the only asset we have is our people, and they walk out of the office every day. So employee retention for the key resources is really important. So just trying to everyone just take it down a notch, right? We're all in this together. We're not curing cancer. This is not brain surgery. If we get a better product and it's better on Monday, cool. It will be fine.
Yes. I say that to people all the time. I don't cure cancer. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. I'm
so
thankful people do.
Me too. I really like those people, and I will donate my money to them.
Right.
But I'm not one of them for a very particular reason, because I do not want that kind of stress.
Yeah. I'm not built for that.
There was a point a couple of years ago that I was asked to be part of a big deal team, which I used air quotes for those that are listening in only here, and I said, no, because it actually isn't such a big deal.
Yeah.
And they treat this big deal as such a huge effort, and it's 24/7, and it's run until you can't run anymore. And, do you need an IV bag? Like, it is serious. And it's like, no, it's just not that big of a deal.
I know. And I think that is what I have seen. Like, when you're in it, it is a big deal, right? And, big deals, companies need big deals to move the ball forward, to make revenue targets. I mean, we're all in business here. So look, I get it.
Yeah.
But, my projects continued on without me for 4 months. My portfolio of work, my clients carried on. I have a great team. Everything, the clock still ticked, right? No one is that important. So, I think that just having a little bit of perspective is super helpful in managing that, your own stress level and how you fit into the bigger picture.
When is the next sabbatical going to happen?
It's funny. I just said that to my husband today. I'm like, I'm so sad it's over. I'll never be able to do this again. And he said, of course you'll be able to do this again. Right. So, who knows? Maybe there's a follow-on book that needs some time to write. And, I think that in what motherhood teaches you is you best laid plans, right? Like you can think about, you can have the best plan in the world. But, if I were trying to plan another sabbatical, I couldn't even begin to think about when or how that might happen. But it was a gift. I valued every single day. I did everything I wanted to on my list that I made in the beginning, because of course I made a list. I was not successful in all the things. I tried to make a gluten-free sourdough bread from starter. I failed 3 times. So I just learned, I'm a great cook. I'm a terrible baker. It's cool. I know that about me now. I tried. It's all good. So, having the time and space to really reflect has been huge, but also to have a big project that I'm so passionate about. And I think that whatever you do, find some element of passion in it, right? You got to pay the bills, but the passion has to be there, because that is what will get you through the late nights. And then, when you get assigned unwillingly to the big deal teams and you have to feel bad about leaving because your 3rd child is sick for the 2nd day in a row. And so these are all the stresses you're going to have. So there's got to be some passion. You got to find what it is that you're doing, understanding your value, and really appreciating that about yourself.
Amazing. Jenn, I'm so excited for the book to come out. When it comes out, we will definitely share it with the listeners because they're going to want their copy too. Before we wrap up, I have a lightning round of questions to ask you.
Awesome.
What is your go-to jam to up your energy?
I love Spotify. I listen to music all the time. The biggest mood changer ever. My sabbatical theme song was Vampire Weekend's Harmony Hall.
Very nice. Such a great song. What time do you wake up?
4:45. I know, it's nuts.
What's breakfast look like?
All the leftover roasted vegetables plus some fresh greens, 2 eggs, and some fruit. Power breakfast.
Love it. Favorite ritual?
I think my favorite ritual is listening to my Calm app sleep story every night when I tuck myself into bed.
Very nice. Do you drink coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
100% morning person.
Yeah, 4:45. You've got to be, because otherwise
it's ugly.
Yeah, see me at 9 o'clock. I'm a toast. So, what is a book you recommend the most?
Oh my goodness. What is the book I recommend the most? Oh, there's so many books I read all the freaking time. Do you know what I read a lot? This is a strange recommendation, but Barbara Ehrenreich wrote a book called Nickel and Dimed about life at the, when you're working for minimum wage. So she knowingly went into 3 different jobs in 3 different areas to try and kind of go undercover as a minimum wage worker. There is nothing better to put your own first world problems in perspective. And I highly recommend you make your kids read this book, because they are all so privileged and they have no idea.
Yes.
I'm not sure it will sink in, but at least make them do it.
All right. What can someone do to help you feel appreciated?
I think just verbal gratitude is something that's so underrated. It's free. There's no skin off your back. But when someone says thank you, I appreciate something very specific, right? Not just like, I appreciate you in my life or in my office or on my team, but I really appreciated the way you gave me the floor in that meeting. Or if I could have one ungrateful teenage boy say, Mom, I'm so happy that you prepare 3 solid meals for us every day, that would blow my mind.
Well, maybe they'll listen to this and then you'll get a flood of gratitude from them the following week. Awesome. Jenn, thanks so much for being on with us. I really appreciate it. I took a ton of notes and I just am going to be awaiting your book.
Good. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
Awesome.